The morning sun cast long shadows across the grand hallway of their countryside home as William paced nervously near the large oak door. His hands trembled slightly as he checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. Kate sat on the antique chair nearby, her usually bright eyes filled with worry and exhaustion. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of countless sleepless nights, and her normally perfect posture had given way to the weight of whatever burden they were carrying. "He should have been here by now," William whispered, his voice barely audible in the spacious room. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly, each second feeling like an eternity. Kate reached for his hand, squeezing it gently, but even her touch couldn't calm the storm brewing inside him. For weeks, they had been living in a state of constant anxiety. What had started as small, seemingly innocent incidents had grown into something much more serious. Strange phone calls in the middle of the night with no one on the other end. Unfamiliar cars parked outside their home for hours at a time. Personal items going missing from their private study. Most disturbing of all, someone had been taking photographs of their family from a distance. Photos that somehow found their way back to them through anonymous mail. William had initially tried to brush off these incidents as coincidences or pranks, but Kate's maternal instincts told her otherwise. Something was terribly wrong, and their children's safety was at stake. The breaking point came 3 days ago when they discovered that someone had been inside their home while they were away. Nothing valuable was taken, but personal documents had been moved, and there were muddy footprints leading to areas of the house that even their trusted staff rarely accessed. The sound of gravel crunching under car tires broke the tense silence. Through the window, they could see a black sedan pulling into their driveway. Detective Inspector Sarah Mills stepped out, her professional demeanor immediately evident in the way she surveyed their property before approaching the door. She had been recommended by a close friend who insisted that if anyone could help them, it would be her. William opened the door before she could knock. "Detective Mills, thank you for coming so quickly," he said, his relief evident in his voice. Kate stood up, smoothing her dress nervously as she prepared to relive the frightening events of recent weeks. "Please call me Sarah," the detective replied with a warm but serious smile. "I understand you've been experiencing some concerning incidents. Why don't we sit down and you can tell me everything from the beginning?" As they settled in the sitting room, Kate began recounting the timeline of events. Her voice was steady at first, but as she described the feeling of being watched and the violation of their privacy, emotion crept in. William took over when she became too overwhelmed, his protective instincts taking charge. "The thing is," William explained, "we're used to a certain level of public attention, but this feels different. It feels personal, almost vindictive. Whoever is doing this knows our routines, our habits, even when we're going to be away from home." Sarah took detailed notes, asking specific questions about times, dates, and any potential connections between the incidents. Her experience told her that this wasn't random harassment, but something much more calculated and dangerous. "Have you noticed anyone new in your social circle recently? Any staff changes, delivery people, or even casual acquaintances who might have had unusual interest in your personal lives?" Sarah asked. Kate and William exchanged glances. They had been so focused on external threats that they hadn't considered the possibility that the danger might be coming from someone they knew, someone they trusted. "There have been a few new people," Kate said slowly, her mind racing through recent interactions. "A new gardener started last month, and there was a woman who claimed to be writing a book about local history. She visited several times, asking questions about the house and our family." Sarah's pen moved quickly across her notepad. "I'll need their full names and any contact information you have." "What about your staff? Anyone acting differently or asking unusual questions?" William felt a chill run down his spine as he remembered something. "Actually, yes. Our housekeeper mentioned that someone called claiming to be from the security company asking about our alarm system. She didn't think much of it at the time because the caller seemed to know specific details about our setup. "That's exactly the kind of intelligence gathering I'm concerned about," Sarah said, her expression growing more serious. "Someone is systematically learning about your vulnerabilities, The question is why, and more importantly, what they're planning to do with that information. The room fell silent as the weight of Sarah's words sank in. This wasn't just about privacy invasion or harassment. Someone was studying them, mapping their lives with the precision of a military operation. The implications were terrifying. Kate's hand shook as she reached for her teacup. What do we do? How do we protect our children when we don't even know who we're protecting them from? Sarah leaned forward, her professional mask softening slightly. First, we implement immediate security measures. Then we start investigating everyone who has had access to your home and personal information in recent months. This person has made mistakes, and we're going to find them. As if on cue, William's phone buzzed with a text message. His face went pale as he read it, and he handed the phone to Sarah without a word. The message was simple but chilling. Stop looking or you'll lose everything you hold dear. Sarah studied the message, noting the timing and the sender information. This confirms it. Whoever is doing this knows we're investigating. They're watching us right now. Kate stood up abruptly, walking to the window and peering through the curtains. There, she whispered urgently. That car across the street? It was there yesterday too, and the day before. Sarah moved to the window, staying back from the curtain line to avoid being seen. The car appeared empty, but its positioning gave a clear view of the house's front entrance and driveway. We need to be very careful from this point forward, Sarah said. I'm going to call for backup surveillance, and I want both of you to vary your routines starting immediately. Don't go anywhere alone, and trust no one outside of your immediate family until we identify who's behind this. William felt a protective rage building inside him. Someone was threatening his family, invading their sanctuary, and using fear as a weapon. What kind of person does this? He asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Someone who believes they have nothing left to lose, Sarah replied grimly. Or someone who thinks they can gain something significant by controlling or intimidating you. Either way, they're dangerous and they're escalating. As the afternoon wore on, Sarah continued gathering information, building a profile of their stalker and establishing security protocols. But even as plans were made and precautions put in place, all three of them knew that this was just the beginning of what would likely be a long and frightening ordeal. The sun was setting as Sarah prepared to leave, promising to return the next day with additional resources and a plan of action. As William walked her to the door, she paused and looked back at Kate, who was still standing by the window. There's something else, Sarah said quietly. In my experience, this level of surveillance and intimidation usually means the perpetrator is building up to something specific. We need to find them before they make their next move. The next morning brought no relief from the tension that had settled over their home like a heavy blanket. William had barely slept, every small sound in the house making him alert and ready to protect his family. Kate had spent most of the night checking on their children, her maternal instincts on high alert despite the additional security measures Sarah had arranged over breakfast. They tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for the sake of their children. But the forced smiles and careful conversations couldn't mask the underlying fear that permeated every interaction. Their youngest asked why there were new people walking around outside, pointing to the plainclothes officers who had taken positions around their property during the night. They're just making sure we're safe. Darling, Kate answered, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. William watched their children's faces, seeing the confusion and slight fear in their innocent eyes. This invasion of their peace was affecting everyone in the family, and the thought made his anger burn even hotter. Sarah arrived promptly at 9 o'clock, accompanied by a technical specialist who would be examining their phones, computers, and home security system for any signs of tampering or surveillance devices. The specialist, a quiet man named David, immediately got to work with equipment that looked like something from a science fiction movie. We've identified the car from yesterday, Sarah reported as they gathered in the study. It was reported stolen 3 days ago from a parking garage downtown. Whoever is doing this is being very careful not to leave obvious traces. William ran his hands through his hair in frustration. So we're dealing with someone who knows how to stay hidden, how to work without being caught. This isn't some random person with a grudge. No, it's not, Sarah agreed. The level of planning and execution suggests someone with experience in surveillance techniques. Possibly someone with a military or law enforcement background or someone who has studied these methods extensively. Kate had been quietly reviewing a list of people who had been to their home in recent months. I've been thinking about that woman who said she was writing a book about local history. She knew an awful lot about our family and this house, things that weren't in any public records. Tell me more about her, Sarah said, pulling out her notepad again. She was probably in her 40s, well-dressed, very articulate. She said her name was Margaret Thompson and that she was writing about old estates in this area. She visited 3 times, always with very specific questions about when the house was built, who had lived here before us, and she seemed particularly interested in the layout of the rooms. William's memory was triggered by Kate's description. She asked about the basement, didn't she? Said she wanted to know if there were any original foundations or historical features down there. Yes, and she was very interested in our daily routines. Asked when we typically had visitors when the children were at school, even what time we usually had dinner. I thought she was just being friendly, but now... Kate's voice trailed off as the implications became clear. David, the technical specialist, approached them with a small device in his hand. I found this, he said simply, holding up what looked like a tiny black button. It was attached to the underside of your main telephone. It's a sophisticated listening device, probably been there for at least 2 weeks. The room went silent. Someone had been inside their home, touching their personal belongings, installing equipment to spy on their private conversations. The violation felt complete and absolute. There's more, David continued, his expression grim. I found similar devices in your study and the main bedroom. Whoever planted these had extensive access to your home and knew exactly where to place them for maximum coverage. Kate sank into a chair, the full reality of their situation hitting her like a physical blow. They heard everything. Our conversations about the children, our plans, our fears. They know everything about us. Sarah moved quickly into action mode. David, I need you to check every room in this house. Use whatever equipment you need. I want to know if there are any cameras, any other listening devices, anything that doesn't belong here. William stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. This Margaret Thompson, or whoever she really is, she was in our home. We invited her in, offered her tea, treated her like a guest while she was planning to terrorize us. We need to find her, Sarah said. Do you have any contact information? Did she leave any business cards or mention where she was staying? Kate retrieved a small card from her desk drawer. She gave me this, said I could call if I thought of any additional historical details about the house. She handed the card to Sarah, who examined it carefully. This looks legitimate, but these days anyone can have professional-looking business cards printed. I'll have our team trace this phone number and check if there really is a Margaret Thompson writing historical books. As David continued his sweep of the house, he called out from the children's playroom. Found another one, he announced, his voice carrying down the hallway. The adults rushed to join him, and Kate's composure finally cracked when she saw the tiny camera that had been watching her children play. How could someone do this? She whispered, tears streaming down her face. What kind of person puts surveillance equipment in a child's room? William pulled her into his arms, his own anger reaching a boiling point. We're going to find whoever did this, and they're going to pay for terrorizing our family. Sarah's phone rang, and she stepped away to take the call. When she returned, her expression was even more serious than before. That was headquarters. The phone number on the business card is disconnected, and there's no record of any Margaret Thompson writing books about local history. The publisher mentioned on the card says they've never heard of her. So she's using a completely false identity, William said. Which means this is even more serious than we thought. There's something else, Sarah continued. We've been analyzing the timing of all these incidents, and they align with some significant dates in your public schedule. Whoever is doing this knows about your official commitments, your travel plans, things that aren't always made public immediately. Kate wiped her tears, her fear transforming into determination. Then it has to be someone with access to that information. Someone in our circle or someone working for people in our circle. David returned with his final report. 6 listening devices and 2 cameras total. All high-end equipment, probably cost several $1,000s. This isn't someone operating on a limited budget. Sarah studied the small devices that David had collected. These are military grade, not available to the general public. Our suspect either has connections to defense contractors or experience in intelligence work. William felt a chill of recognition. Wait, I just remembered something. At the charity gala last month, there was a woman who approached us claiming to be a journalist. She asked very detailed questions about our security arrangements. Said she was writing about personal safety for public figures. Did she give you her name? Sarah asked urgently. She said she was from a magazine I'd never heard of. Something about lifestyle and security. Kate, do you remember her? Kate nodded slowly. She was very persistent, kept asking about our alarm system, our staff, even about which rooms our children slept in. She said she wanted to include safety tips for families in similar situations. That's our suspect, Sarah said with conviction. She's been gathering intelligence for weeks, using different identities and cover stories to get close to you and learn about your vulnerabilities. As the pieces of the puzzle began falling into place, William realized they were dealing with someone far more dangerous than a simple stalker. This was someone with training, resources, and a specific plan that went beyond harassment or intimidation. What does she want? Kate asked, the question that had been haunting all of them. Sarah's expression was grim as she answered. Based on the level of surveillance and the systematic approach, this isn't about money or attention. She's gathering information for something bigger, something that requires her to know your every move, your routines, your weaknesses. The implications of Sarah's words settled over them like a dark cloud. They weren't just being watched or harassed. They were being studied, analyzed, and prepared for something far worse than anything they had imagined. The investigation took on new urgency as Sarah's team worked around the clock to identify the woman who had infiltrated their lives with such calculated precision. Security footage from the charity gala was being analyzed, and every person who had attended was being quietly investigated. Meanwhile, William and Kate found themselves living like prisoners in their own home, constantly watched by protection officers and unable to move freely without elaborate security protocols. 3 days after the discovery of the surveillance devices, Kate was in the garden with their children when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. There, pressed against the glass of the greenhouse, was a single white envelope. No one should have been able to get close enough to leave it there without being seen by the security team, she called for William immediately, her voice tight with fear. When he arrived with 2 protection officers, they approached the greenhouse cautiously. The envelope bore no markings, no address, just their names written in elegant script across the front. Don't touch it, one of the officers instructed. It could be contaminated or booby-trapped. Sarah arrived within minutes of being called, bringing with her a specialist team equipped to handle potentially dangerous packages. Using protective equipment, they carefully retrieved the envelope and examined it in a portable containment unit before determining it was safe to open. Inside was a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed William and Kate having breakfast that very morning, taken from an angle that suggested the photographer had been hiding in the trees beyond their garden. The invasion of their privacy was complete and terrifying, but it was the note that made William's hands shake with rage. You have something that belongs to me, the note read in the same elegant handwriting. I want it back, and I will do whatever it takes to get it. Stop the investigation or your children will pay the price. You have 48 hours to remember what you've taken from me. Kate sank onto a nearby bench, the full weight of the threat hitting her. What could we possibly have that belongs to someone else? We've never taken anything from anyone. William studied the note again, his mind racing through possibilities. This has to be about something we inherited with the house. Or maybe something we were given that we don't even realize is important. Sarah was already on her phone. calling for additional security measures for the children and requesting a forensic analysis of the note and photograph. "We need to search every inch of your property," she told them. "Whatever she's looking for, it's valuable enough that she's willing to threaten children to get it back." "But we don't even know what we're looking for," Kate protested. "How can we find something when we don't know what it is?" "She mentioned that you have something that belongs to her," Sarah said thoughtfully. "That suggests it's not just valuable, it's personal. Something with sentimental or historical significance that she believes is rightfully hers." William thought about the history of their estate. "This house has been in my family for generations. There are rooms full of antiques, artwork, documents, family heirlooms. Any number of things could fit that description." "We need to start with anything that came to you recently," Sarah advised. "Gifts, inheritances, purchases made in the last year." She's escalated her activities recently, which suggests something specific triggered her interest in you. Kate suddenly stood up, a memory surfacing. "The auction," she said quietly. "Last autumn, we bought several items at an estate auction. Beautiful pieces, but we bought them because we thought they would look lovely in the house, not because of any particular significance." "What kind of items?" Sarah asked, pulling out her notepad. "Mostly furniture and artwork," William recalled. "An antique writing desk, some paintings, a jewelry box that Kate fell in love with, and a few other smaller pieces." "The jewelry box," Kate said suddenly. "There was something strange about that purchase. A woman at the auction was bidding against us very aggressively. When we won, she looked absolutely devastated, like we had taken something precious from her." Sarah's attention sharpened. "Describe this woman." Kate closed her eyes, trying to recall the details. Middle-aged, well-dressed, very emotional about losing that particular item. "She tried to approach us afterward, but there were so many people and we left quickly." "That could be our suspect," Sarah said. "If that jewelry box belonged to her family and ended up at auction without her knowledge, she might see you as thieves who stole her inheritance." William felt a surge of hope mixed with apprehension. "The jewelry box is in Kate's dressing room. Should we look at it?" "Not yet," Sarah cautioned. "If she's willing to threaten your children over it, there's something about that box that we're not seeing. It could be booby-trapped, or there might be something hidden inside it that's worth far more than its apparent value." They returned to the house under heavy escort, the weight of the 48-hour deadline pressing down on them. Every minute that passed felt like borrowed time, and the knowledge that someone was watching their every move made even simple activities feel dangerous. In the security of their study, with guards posted at every entrance, Sarah began making calls to investigate the auction house and trace the ownership history of the jewelry box. Meanwhile, Kate tried to remember every detail about the mysterious woman who had been so desperate to win the bidding. "She was crying," Kate recalled suddenly. "When we won the auction, she was actually crying. At the time, I thought she was just disappointed, but now I realize it was grief. Real, deep grief, like she had lost something irreplaceable." "That supports the theory that it was a family heirloom," Sarah said. "Something with deep personal significance that she never intended to sell." William's phone buzzed with another text message, and the blood drained from his face as he read it. Without a word, he handed the phone to Sarah. This message contained a photo of their children playing in their school playground, taken from somewhere beyond the school's perimeter fence. "She can reach them anywhere," Kate whispered, her voice breaking. "Even at school, even with all the security, she can get close enough to photograph them." Sarah immediately called the school and had additional protection sent there, but the message was clear. No amount of security could completely protect them from someone who was patient, resourceful, and desperate enough to threaten innocent children. "We have to give it back," Kate said, her maternal instincts overriding any other considerations. "Whatever this jewelry box means to her, it's not worth risking our children's lives." "It's not that simple," Sarah replied. "If we simply hand over what she wants, we have no guarantee that she stopped threatening you. She's already committed multiple felonies and she knows we can identify her. The only way to truly end this is to catch her." William stood up, his decision made. Then we use the jewelry box as bait. Set up a meeting, let her think she's getting what she wants, but have your team ready to arrest her? That's exactly what I was thinking, Sarah said. But we need to be very careful about how we do this. She's already proven that she's smart, well-equipped, and willing to hurt innocent people to get what she wants. As they began planning their response, none of them noticed the small shadow that passed by the study window, or the almost imperceptible sound of footsteps on the gravel outside. Their stalker was closer than they realized, and her desperation was growing with each passing hour. The jewelry box sat innocently in Kate's dressing room, its ornate surface hiding secrets that had already cost one family their peace and threatened to destroy another. Whatever lay hidden within its decorative confines was about to be revealed, along with the truth about the woman who would risk everything to reclaim it. The next morning brought devastating news that shattered any remaining sense of security William and Kate had managed to maintain. Sarah arrived at their home before dawn, her face grave with the weight of information she had uncovered during the night. The auction house had provided records showing that the jewelry box had indeed been sold without the knowledge of its rightful owner, a woman named Elena Vasquez, whose elderly mother had died 6 months ago. Elena's mother had dementia, Sarah explained as they gathered in the study. When she died, a distant relative cleaned out her house and sold everything at auction without consulting the rest of the family. Elena didn't even know her mother's treasures were gone until it was too late to stop the sale. Kate felt a stab of sympathy despite their circumstances. So she really does have a legitimate claim to the jewelry box. We unknowingly bought something that should have stayed in her family. That's true, Sarah acknowledged, but it doesn't excuse what she's done. Terrorizing your family, breaking into your home, threatening your children. Those are serious crimes regardless of her emotional connection to the jewelry box. William studied the photographs Sarah had brought from Elena's background investigation. The woman in the images looked familiar, but there was something different about her appearance in the older photos versus the recent surveillance footage they had obtained. She's been planning this for months, Sarah continued. Elena Vasquez lost her job as a private security consultant shortly after her mother's death. She's been using her professional skills to conduct this campaign against your family. A security consultant, William repeated, understanding now why their stalker had been so effective at avoiding detection. She knows exactly how to circumvent security systems and surveillance. Kate was studying one of the photographs more closely. This is definitely the woman who came to our house claiming to be Margaret Thompson. But she looks so different here, younger somehow, less desperate. Grief can change people dramatically, Sarah observed. From what we've learned about Elena's background, that jewelry box may be the only thing she has left of her mother. Her father died when she was young, she never married, no children. Her mother was her whole world. Despite the danger they were in, William found himself feeling sympathy for their stalker. She's lost everything, and she believes we have the one thing that could give her comfort. Which is exactly why she's so dangerous, Sarah warned. People with nothing left to lose are capable of anything. She's already proven that by threatening your children. The sound of William's phone ringing broke the tension in the room. The caller ID showed an unknown number, and Sarah immediately signaled for him to answer while she activated the recording equipment they had set up. "Hello, William," said a woman's voice, cultured but strained with emotion. "I think it's time we talked." "Elena," William said, using her real name deliberately. "Yes, I think we need to talk too." There was a moment of surprised silence. "You know who I am." "We know everything, Elena. We know about your mother, about the auction, about what the jewelry box means to you. We want to resolve this peacefully." "Then give me back what's mine," Elena's voice cracked with suppressed emotion. "That jewelry box belonged to my grandmother, then my mother, and now it should be mine. It's all I have left of my family." Kate leaned toward the phone. "Elena, this is Kate. I understand your pain, I really do. But threatening our children isn't the way to solve this. Let's meet and talk about how we can make this right." "You don't understand," Elena replied, her voice becoming more agitated. "That box contains more than just jewelry. There are letters, photographs, documents that tell the story of my family. Things that are irreplaceable and priceless to me, even if they mean nothing to you." Sarah was furiously taking notes, realizing that the jewelry box was essentially a family archive disguised as a decorative container. "Elena," she called out, "this is Detective Inspector Mills. I'm here with William and Kate, and I want you to know that we're prepared to return your family's belongings to you." "The police," Elena said bitterly. "I should have known you would involve them. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? Watching strangers handle my mother's treasures, seeing them displayed in your home like trophies." William felt a deep sense of guilt wash over him. "We didn't know, Elena. If we had realized the significance of those items, we never would have bid on them." "We're not your enemies." "Then prove it," Elena demanded. "Bring the jewelry box to St. Mary's Church on Elm Street at midnight tonight. Come alone or I'll disappear and you'll never see me again. But you'll never feel safe either, because you'll always wonder when I might come back." The line went dead before anyone could respond. Sarah immediately began coordinating with her team to set up surveillance around the church, while William and Kate grappled with the reality that their ordeal was finally approaching its conclusion. "We can't let you go alone," Sarah insisted. "She's already proven that she's unstable and dangerous." "But she's also grieving and desperate," Kate pointed out. "If she sees a police presence, she might panic and do something we'll all regret." William made his decision. "I'll go, but with backup position far enough away that she won't see them immediately. If she really just wants her family's belongings back, then this can end peacefully tonight." Sarah reluctantly agreed to the plan, but only with extensive safety precautions. William would wear a concealed tracking device and be in constant communication with the surveillance team. Sharpshooters would be positioned around the church perimeter, and the entire area would be monitored by heat-sensing equipment. As evening approached, Kate helped William prepare for what they hoped would be their final confrontation with Elena. The jewelry box sat on the table between them, its ornate surface hiding the family treasures that had sparked such desperate actions. "What if there's more to this than we know?" Kate asked, voicing the fear that had been growing in both of them. "What if the jewelry box contains something that Elena is willing to kill for?" "Then we'll find out tonight," William replied, checking the communication device one final time. "But whatever happens, this ends now. Our children deserve to feel safe in their own home again." As midnight approached, William drove through the empty streets toward St. Mary's Church, carrying with him not just a jewelry box, but the hopes and fears of two families whose lives had become tragically intertwined. Behind him, invisible but vigilant, Sarah's team followed at a careful distance, ready to intervene if Elena's grief had pushed her beyond the point of reason. The church loomed ahead in the darkness, its Gothic spires reaching toward a cloudy sky. William parked his car and walked toward the main entrance, the jewelry box tucked securely under his arm. Somewhere in the shadows, a desperate woman waited for the return of her most precious memories, while police officers prepared for whatever desperate act she might attempt in her quest to reclaim her past. The stage was set for a confrontation that would either bring peace to both families or shatter them completely. And hidden within the ornate confines of the jewelry box, secrets waited to be revealed that would change everything they thought. They knew about Elena Vasquez and her tragic quest for justice. The church stood silent and imposing against the midnight sky as William approached the heavy wooden doors. Each step echoed in the empty courtyard, the jewelry box feeling heavier in his arms with each passing moment. Through his concealed earpiece, he could hear Sarah's team confirming positions and monitoring his vital signs. Their professional calm a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing inside him. As he pushed open the church door, the ancient hinges creaked in protest, the sound seeming unnaturally loud in the sacred silence. Inside, candles flickered near the altar, casting dancing shadows across the stone walls and stained glass windows. The air smelled of incense and old wood, carrying with it the weight of centuries of prayers and confessions. "I'm here, Elena," William called softly, his voice carrying through the vast space. For a moment there was no response, just the gentle crackling of candle flames and the distant sound of wind. Against the windows, then a figure emerged from the shadows near the altar. Elena Vasquez looked different from her surveillance photos, older somehow, as if the months of grief and planning had aged her years in the span of weeks. Her eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion and unshed tears, and her hands trembled slightly as she stepped into the candlelight. "You came," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't sure you would." "I gave you my word," William replied, holding up the jewelry box. "This belongs to you and your family. It never should have been sold." Elena's composure cracked as she saw her mother's jewelry box, and tears began streaming down her face. "You have no idea what that means to me," she said, reaching out toward it before stopping herself. "For months I've been living in a nightmare, knowing that strangers had the most precious thing my mother left behind." William took a step closer, still maintaining a safe distance but showing that he wasn't afraid of her. "Tell me about your mother, Elena. Help me understand what this box meant to her." Elena wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. Her name was Isabella. She came to this country with nothing but that jewelry box and the dreams of a better life. Everything important to our family is in there: letters from my father before he died, photographs of grandparents I never met, documents that prove our family's history. "And jewelry?" William asked gently. "Some," Elena nodded. "But not valuable jewelry, not in terms of money. Pieces my grandmother made by hand, things that tell the story of who we are and where we came from. My mother used to open that box every night before bed and look through the photographs, telling me stories about our ancestors and their journey to America." William felt the full weight of his family's unintentional role in Elena's tragedy. "Why didn't you just contact us directly? We would have gladly returned it if we had known." Elena's expression hardened. "I tried at first. I called your home, but your staff said you weren't interested in discussing items you had purchased legally. I went to the auction house, but they said all sales were final. I felt like everyone was conspiring to keep me from my own family's history. So you decided to take matters into your own hands," William said, understanding now how desperation had driven her to such extreme measures. "I learned everything I could about you and your family," Elena admitted. "I studied your routines, your security measures, your vulnerabilities. I told myself I was just trying to find the right moment to approach you. But really, I was planning to take back what was mine regardless of the consequences." Through his earpiece, William could hear Sarah's voice urging caution, but he sensed that Elena was finally ready to end this peacefully. "The surveillance equipment, the threats against my children, that was you trying to force us to give it back?" Elena's face contorted with shame. "I never meant for it to go so far. When I installed those listening devices, I just wanted to know when you would be away so I could search for the box. But hearing your family's private conversations, seeing how much you love your children, it made me realize how wrong I was." "Then why did you threaten them?" William asked, his voice carrying the pain of a father whose children had been targeted. "Because I was desperate," Elena sobbed. "I've lost everything: my job, my home, my purpose in life. That jewelry box is all I have left of my mother, and I was willing to do anything to get it back. Even things I knew were wrong." William made a decision that surprised even himself. He walked closer to Elena, close enough that Sarah's team would be on high alert, and gently placed the jewelry box on the altar between them. "It's yours, Elena, it always was. But I need something from you in return." Elena looked up at him suspiciously. "What?" "I need you to promise that this ends here. No more surveillance, no more threats, no more contact with my family. Take your mother's treasures and find a way to heal from this grief without hurting innocent people." Elena reached for the jewelry box with shaking hands, holding it against her chest like a mother would hold a lost child. "You don't understand how much this means to me," she whispered. "Actually, I think I do," William said softly. "I have children, and I know what it would mean to lose the things that connect them to their family history. But I also know that my mother would never have wanted me to threaten innocent people, even to recover something precious to our family." Elena opened the jewelry box, and even in the dim candlelight, William could see the photographs and letters that had meant everything to her mother. There were also several pieces of handmade jewelry, simple but beautiful, that spoke of family traditions passed down through generations. She made this necklace for me when I graduated from college, Elena said, holding up a delicate silver chain with a small locket. And these are letters my father wrote to her during the war. She read them to me when I was little, telling me about their love story and how they dreamed of building a life together in America. William watched as Elena carefully examined each item, her relief and joy evident despite her tears. "Your mother would be proud that you fought so hard to get these back," he said. "But she would also want you to find peace now that you have them." Elena looked up at him, and for the first time since this ordeal began, William saw not a dangerous stalker, but a broken woman who had lost her way in grief. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "I'm sorry for what I put your family through. You didn't deserve to be terrorized because of my pain." "We all do things we regret when we're hurting," William replied. "The important thing is that we learn from those mistakes and choose to do better." Elena closed the jewelry box and stood up, her posture straighter now that she had reclaimed her family's treasures. "What happens now?" "I know the police are here, probably watching us right now." William touched his earpiece. "Sarah, are you listening?" "I'm here," came the reply through his concealed speaker, loud enough for Elena to hear. "Elena has her family's belongings back, and she's expressed genuine remorse for her actions. What are your thoughts on how we proceed from here?" There was a pause as Sarah considered the situation. "Elena, this is Detective Inspector Mills. You've committed serious crimes, but I can also see that you are acting out of grief rather than malice. If you're willing to surrender peacefully and seek the help you need to process this loss, I'm prepared to recommend a treatment program rather than prosecution." Elena looked surprised. "You would do that? After everything I've done?" "Justice isn't always about punishment," Sarah's voice replied. "Sometimes it's about healing and making sure people get the help they need to become productive members of society again." Elena nodded, her decision made. "I'll come with you willingly. And I want to make restitution to William's family for the security costs and the trauma I caused them." William felt a weight lifting from his shoulders as Elena walked toward the church entrance, the jewelry box clutched securely in her arms. The nightmare that had consumed their lives for weeks was finally coming to an end, not with violence or retribution, but with understanding and forgiveness. As they emerged from the church together, Sarah's team moved in to take Elena into custody, but their approach was gentle and respectful. Elena had kept her word about surrendering peacefully, and she deserved to be treated with dignity despite her crimes. "Thank you," Elena said to William as the handcuffs were placed on her wrists. "Thank you for understanding why this mattered so much to me." "Take care of those treasures," William replied, "and take care of yourself. Your mother would want you to find happiness again." As Elena was led to the police car, William finally allowed himself to believe that his family was truly safe. The woman who had terrorized them was gone, and in her place was someone who needed help rather than punishment. It was a resolution none of them could have predicted when this ordeal began. 3 months later, William stood in the same study where their ordeal had begun, but the atmosphere was completely transformed. Sunlight streamed through the windows that had once been sources of anxiety, and the children's laughter echoed from the garden where they now played without the constant presence of security guards. The healing process had been gradual but steady, and their family had emerged stronger from the crisis that had threatened to tear them apart. Kate joined him at the window, watching their children chase butterflies in the garden that Elena had once used to spy on their home. "Did you ever think we'd feel this peaceful again?" she asked, leaning against his shoulder. "There were moments when I wondered if we'd ever feel safe in our own home," William admitted. "But seeing how Elena was just a grieving daughter who lost her way, it helped us understand that not all threats come from evil people. Sometimes they come from broken people who need help." On William's desk lay a letter that had arrived that morning, postmarked from the treatment facility where Elena was completing her court-mandated counseling program. Her handwriting was steadier now, less desperate than the threatening notes that had terrorized them months before. "She's doing well," William said, picking up the letter. Her therapist says she's made remarkable progress in dealing with her grief and the guilt over what she did to us. Kate read over his shoulder. In the letter, Elena described how holding her mother's jewelry box each night had helped her process her loss in healthy ways. She had also found work as a consultant for families dealing with estate settlements, helping to prevent the kind of tragic mix-up that had separated her from her family's treasures. She's turned her pain into something positive, Kate observed. I'm proud of her for that. Sarah Mills had visited the week before to update them on Elena's progress and officially close the case. The charges against Elena had been reduced to misdemeanors in exchange for her cooperation and successful completion of the treatment program. More importantly, she had made full restitution for the security costs and even established a scholarship fund for children who had lost parents, using money from the sale of other items her mother had left behind. You know what I think about most when I remember that night in the church? William said thoughtfully. It wasn't the fear or the danger. It was seeing Elena hold that jewelry box and realizing that we had the power to give someone their family back. Their own family had been transformed by the experience as well. The children, who had been too young to fully understand the danger they were in, had learned valuable lessons about empathy and forgiveness from watching their parents choose understanding over revenge. Family conversations now included discussions about helping others and the importance of treasuring the connections that bind families together. There's something else, Kate said, pulling out an envelope from her jacket pocket. This came with Elena's letter. Inside was a photograph showing Elena standing in what appeared to be a small apartment, smiling genuinely for the first time since they had known her. On a table beside her sat her mother's jewelry box, now displayed in a place of honor surrounded by fresh flowers, and other family photographs, but what caught their attention was a second photograph showing Elena with an elderly man who bore a strong family resemblance. According to the letter, Elena's research into her family history, prompted by examining the documents in the jewelry box, had led her to discover a great-uncle she never knew existed. He had been searching for family members for years, and their reunion had given Elena the sense of belonging she had lost when her mother died. She found her family again, Kate said softly. In a way, our ordeal led her to something even more valuable than what she thought she had lost. William nodded, thinking about the strange ways that tragedy and healing could intertwine. It makes me wonder if this was all meant to happen somehow. Elena needed to reclaim her past, but she also needed to find her future. The sound of their children calling from the garden brought them back to the present moment. Life had returned to a new normal, one enriched by the lessons they had learned about the power of compassion in the face of fear. As evening approached, William and Kate began their new family tradition of gathering around the fireplace to share stories about their ancestors and the family treasures that surrounded them in their historic home. The children loved hearing about the generations who had lived in the house before them, and William and Kate had developed a new appreciation for the responsibility that came with being guardians of family history. "Daddy," their youngest daughter asked as she snuggled into his lap, "why did the lady want her box so much?" William considered how to explain the complexities of loss and love to a child. Because it held all the memories of the people she loved most in the world. Sometimes when we lose someone we care about, having something that belonged to them helps us feel close to them again. Like how I feel close to Grandmama when I wear her necklace? The child asked, touching the small pendant Kate had given her. Exactly like that, Kate said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. Family treasures aren't valuable because of what they cost, but because of the love they represent. Later that evening, after the children were asleep, William and Kate sat together in their study reading Elena's latest letter. She had included an invitation to a small ceremony, where she would be graduating from her counseling program and officially starting her new career, helping families navigate estate issues. "Do you think we should go?" Kate asked. William considered the question carefully. "I think Elena has become part of our family story, just as we've become part of hers. Maybe it's important to witness the next chapter of her healing." As they prepared for bed that night, William paused at the door that had once seemed like a barrier between their family and an unknown threat. Now it was simply a door, protecting a home filled with love, understanding, and the hard-won wisdom that came from choosing forgiveness over fear. Kate joined him, understanding his moment of reflection. Do you ever regret how we handled it? Some people might say we were too trusting, too willing to see the good in someone who threatened our children. Never, William said firmly. We showed our children that even in the darkest moments, there's always a choice between responding with hatred or responding with love. That's a lesson worth any risk. The house settled into peaceful quiet as the family slept, secure in the knowledge that they had not only survived a crisis, but had grown stronger and more compassionate because of it. Outside, the garden bloomed in the moonlight, no longer hiding threats, but simply providing beauty for a family that had learned to see hope even in the shadows. In a small apartment across town, Elena Vasquez sat by her window, writing in the journal her therapist had encouraged her to keep. In tonight's entry, she wrote about gratitude for the family she had lost and found again, for the strangers who had shown her mercy when she deserved punishment, and for the future that had seemed impossible during her darkest days. Both families had discovered that, behind doors that seemed to conceal threats, there could also be opportunities for healing, growth, and unexpected connections that enriched their lives in ways they never could have imagined. The jewelry box that had sparked such desperate actions now sat peacefully in Elena's home, its treasures whole and treasured, just as the hearts that had been broken by grief and fear had slowly been made whole again through the power of human kindness and understanding.